Welcome to Nostology. We're your host. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Jessica.
And today we're going to talk about the fun topic of HOAs.
Yeah, we kind of touched on it a little bit last month when we did our, the PID, MUD, PUD, etc.
All that fun stuff.
But this one really kind of needed its own.
It really did. There's a lot of information with HOA. So why don't we start with what does it stand for?
What does it stand for?
Homeowners Association.
Yes, they're so much fun. We both have HOAs.
We do. I have a couple.
On one house.
On one house. I know.
And then I have one for my home and then one for my rental property, which is a condo, which gets really complicated. So
we're going to write that down today.
We will.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So HOAs, what do they do? What is their purpose and why do we have them?
Well, the purpose, it can be to manage amenities. So some of these, especially for an HOA, you have pools and maybe playgrounds or parks in a neighborhood. So it helps to cover the expense of all those and help maintain the property values. It's supposed to keep the neighborhood looking nice so that you maintain your home values.
Yeah, which is why we have to go through the HOA to restain a fence or, things on the exterior of our home because they want to make sure that everything's still uniform and, stays in line with what the neighborhood expects.
Yeah, and I've seen houses that are terrible eyesores. I've sold houses where people were turned off by the neighbor's house. There's a house in Fort Worth that's all purple roof. They painted the house purple. Oh, everything's purple.
Oh, wow.
We have one here in Argot. It's not as bad. It's not as bright, but it's all black. They did a black roof, painted the house black, trim is black. Everything is black.
The whole house?
The whole house is black.
Gosh, that's crazy.
I don't love it.
I want to go see that.
I'll give you the address. You can drive by it.
Yeah.
So it's just not very pretty. I don't love it. But on the bad end, you can get people who have weeds halfway up their house. They have broken down cars on blocks in the driveway. I had one where you could see into the neighbor's backyard from the back patio, and it was a junkyard in their backyard.
Oh, God.
So junky and trashy. And it turned people away. That was the feedback we got, was we don't want them as neighbors.
So the HOAs, they do have a purpose.
They do.
And, some of them are good. Some of them, can be a little...
Annoying.
Yes, that's a good word. I was going to say something else, but that's only because I just paid my 2 HOA bills that keep going up.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be talking about a lot of frustrations with HOAs, so I figured we'd start off with the positive and why we have them.
Why
the reminder. And some of the neighborhoods do have some really cool amenities. I've seen splash pads and some really cool stuff that's fun to have.
Absolutely.
And on my condo, of course, you have to have it because it's shared property. So you have a shared roof, you have shared walls, you have the breezeways and elevators. So even amenities aside, you share a building. So insurance and that common space that may need repairs you have to have a common fund to do repairs. So
got it. So all condos then pretty much are in HOAs.
Yep. Townhouses and condos. Well,
anything that has shared.
Yes. And that's something to be aware of. Shelley can talk about that. When you're buying a house, some people will think townhome or condo is a better route because they're cheaper.
Yes, but the HOA dues, we've got to take that into account because even though you may not be paying that necessarily monthly, we do have to count it in the debt to income ratio.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime somebody says, I think I'm going to go look at a condo, I immediately have to change my estimates to higher HOA estimates because, that is part of the qualification. But I can reduce the homeowner's insurance, right? Because the homeowner's insurance policy is typically a little bit lower because the condo is going to cover the building.
Yes.
Or the townhome,
Well, and making sure it's in there because sometimes they do charge that separately from the HOA dues. It's a mandatory expense, but it's not part of that. So you have to make sure that is covered in there. But some of these condos and townhomes, it's $300-$400 a month.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference.
As high as $600.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference.
Mine is $1,200.
Oh my goodness.
It's a beachfront condo. So insurance is ridiculous.
Okay. Probably because you're right there by the ocean.
Yeah. But we have we have multiple elevators and we have 2 pools, 2 hot tubs, and everything at the coast is more expensive.
Yes.
And has to be replaced more often because of the salty air. So everything rusts, everything breaks down. Those elevators have repairs all the time. So it's very expensive. So $1,200 a month, that is a hard bill to pay.
Ooh, yeah, that is. Luckily, you rent that out so somebody else can pay it.
Help to pay it.
Yes, exactly.
Well, so some of the things that people get surprised with on an HOA are the restrictions that they can have.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, while it helps to maintain the nice look of the neighborhood, it can be annoying to get those, letters to let you know that you're in violation because you haven't weeded your flower bed.
Mm-hmm. Or your stain is the wrong color because you didn't run it by the HOA.
Is that on your personal experience?
Maybe. I tend to do things and then ask for permission later.
You had it. Did you get in trouble for yours when you restained?
No, I did check the color of the stain.
That's good because she had to do some staining on her entry.
Stain, some things because I got a nice little note.
Because it was faded.
Because it was faded.
We didn't get a letter about our fence being faded, but I didn't get permission before we stained it. We had some good weather because when you stain your fence, it can't be below freezing for a few days and you can't have rain. We had this window. So I just ran to Home Depot and did it. So I may get in trouble, but...
Uh-oh. You haven't found out yet?
No. I mean, it's the same color it was before, but you never know. You get a Karen in the neighborhood who saw us doing it and reported us or something.
Oh, I know it. There's always people watching. That's true.
So some of the things, if you've never owned a home in an HOA before and you're considering it, they will be on the lookout for your lawn being manicured. You can't have weeds. You need to, removal of dead plants. We had that after that bad freeze in 2021.
Yes.
Everybody lost their landscaping and there were letters out immediately telling people to remove the dead landscaping and replace it. But it's not just removing it because there's usually requirements on how many shrubs and what size.
Oh, and the trees.
Replacing the trees. We've had to do that too. They'll usually have a guideline that says how many of what types of shrubs. Sometimes there's restrictions on what types of plants can be there. So you'll have to get permission and make sure that you're following all those guidelines. Some other things, you may have restrictions about, extra items. Like if you can have a shed in your backyard, if it's visible above the fence or a basket. Everyone in our neighborhood hates this one. We can't have basketball goals. And so many of the kids, we have a ton of kids in our neighborhood and they want basketball goals. There's enough people wanting to make it happen, but we can't get enough people to vote because you have to have your bylaws will say how to go about changes. So we have to get a certain number of votes and we can't get enough people to vote.
Oh no.
To hit the percentage.
The ones that's like not a permanent one, but like in the driveway.
You can, but then you have to bring it in, store it in your garage. And then you can't park your car there because that's in the way. So
that's true.
It's just an annoyance. So some people do have those, but they can't be left out. Another one I see that's sometimes a surprise is, and not every neighborhood does this, but I have seen it, is no vehicles with logos or branding on the car. So
what?
Say you're a plumber. You're a business owner. You own a plumbing company and you have your work truck that can't be parked there.
I've not heard of that one.
So if you are a contractor or have your own business where you have branding on your car, if you're buying in an HOA, you want to check the guidelines first and make sure you can park your car in the driveway. So you may either have to park it in the garage or leave it at work. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I've never heard of that one.
I haven't seen that one as much, but I have seen it a few times and made it enough where when I have clients who do own their own business and or they work for a company where they often bring the vehicle home because sometimes it's not your business, but you work for that company and your day starts early. So they let you take the vehicle home. Mm-hmm. So I've seen that one. And another surprising is roof replacement, getting approval.
Oh, which I haven't done yet,
Yeah, you haven't had to replace
My roof is fine. I had it checked out.
You did? It's in good shape.
It's in good shape.
So the restrictions on there, again, same thing, like I said, that purple roof in Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. You don't want your neighbor. I get the reason behind it, but if you have your roof leaking after a bad storm and you're trying to get your roof replaced, the last thing you want to do is go through all the paperwork to fill out to get your roof approved by the HOA, especially if you're putting the same type of roof back on and it's not going to look any different.
Right.
But they can catch you on that. So just be aware that you need to file that. let's see here.
Mine has, like my trees are bigger, right? Because my house was one of the first ones in the neighborhood. So my trees are a lot bigger than some of my neighbors. And they changed the HOA. That's one thing to be aware of as well. Because when you first move into a neighborhood, they actually can change the HOA. Like it was originally by a separate company. And then after a period of time, the homeowners took over the HOA. So we have homeowners on the board and they have made some changes. But one of the ones that we had that was kind of crazy was the trees that are on the exterior of the property were the responsibility of the HOA. So if, you talk about the big freezes that we had, and that the tree died, then the HOA was going to replace it. But in my case, some of the trees started dying because the landscape company started piling up the mulch. Like, I didn't know this. I learned this because I had to call a tree company. And they started piling up the mulch and it kind of killed some of the trees. And then all of a sudden, now the homeowners are responsible for replacing the trees. But they say it needs to be the same size that it was. Well, now mine are, they're not like a little 2 or 3 inch tree.
Yeah.
So that, just be aware. Also, you need to go and attend the meetings and be aware of what the changes might be.
Yes. Well, that reminded me too of another one for rentals, because I've seen some neighborhoods actually change that down the road as far as restrictions on being able to rent the house. So if you are buying a property as an investment or you have thoughts of renting it in the future, I've seen different ways that this has been done to minimize the amount of renters in a neighborhood. One is that you have to occupy the home first. So investors can't buy the home and immediately rent it. But if you buy it and then occupy the home right away, but then, a year down the road, you move to a different home, you could rent it. Some have done it where there's only a certain percentage that can be rented. So, maybe you had plans to rent it, but then the neighborhood hit that limit and now you can't rent your home anymore once you move out. So just being aware of that, but same thing, because these things will change.
Yeah, they can.
During the time that you're living there. So, I'm bad about this. I don't always attend mine.
You do the investment property, you do.
On the investment, which those exhaust me enough. We've had up to 7-8 hour long HOA meetings before.
That's insane.
They're insane. My neighborhood just seems like a piece of cake now, because my house, we don't have any amenities in ours. It's cheap. Although some of my neighbors don't always think it's cheap. It's cheap.
Yeah.
We're only a few $100s a year for our neighborhood. So
that is
it is very
comparison
easy compared. But attend the meetings, know what's happening in your neighborhood, and vote so that way you can be a part of it, whether it's you want to add basketball goals or you want to, vote against a big change like changing it to where you can't rent. Because I know some people, they're like, we don't want a bunch of renters as neighbors. But if investors are coming in the neighborhood and that's what part of the neighborhood is, you can impact the property values if suddenly you cut off that one source. So just keeping everything in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, we talked about how condos and townhomes have higher HOAs. Gated communities are too, because you own the roads and sidewalks.
Okay.
So that's another one. If you have a gated community, it seems nice for the security, but those HOAs are usually going to be higher too.
Interesting. Okay.
And could have special any HOAs can have special assessments. Have you had any?
Yes, all the time. All the time.
Oh,
and really it has been every single year we've had special assessments. But it's really because our weather has been so crazy. And because the neighborhood, I've been here now 7 years. It's still relatively newer, right? As far as like the plants and stuff go. And we've had just like, the snowmageddon, and then we've had just the heat from hell. I mean, it's been from one extreme to the other.
When your HOA, you guys include the front yard maintenance for the neighborhood. So
exactly. So they mow and, supposedly,
trees.
They supposedly take care of the front flower beds and stuff. I still have somebody that comes and does a little extra once a quarter just to make sure mine's presentable. But yes, that's part of what we pay for. Yeah. So when the landscaping was all dying, and then we've got some, just small park areas, and then those trees were dying and the landscaping was dying, then the HOA is the one that's got to pick up that bill to get those replaced.
Yeah.
And so we had to pay special assessments for additional plants.
So a special assessment, this could come up if there is a major repair that you don't have the funding for. So, if it's maybe there's a major pool, repair expense that comes up. And so they have to put out that special assessment and ask all the homeowners to contribute towards it. We had one in my personal neighborhood because how there will be like the brick walls that back up to a road. We had repairs to do on one of those walls. So I think it was like $200, something or $300, but they broke it up over 2 years where you could make 2 payments or something. And I was laughing. It seemed so silly to me because we went through crazy special assessments on the condo after Hurricane Harvey because insurance didn't cover everything. So before we got there, they had issued an $80,000 special assessment on the owners, per owner.
Per owner, $80,000.
That's how we got in when we did, because people were selling because they couldn't, they had to sell to be able to pay it off. So
not many people can afford a special assessment of $80,000.
No. So it was huge. And they've had other special assessments since then where that's why, like I said, I laughed when they were like, ours is like $300 per owner. And they're like, you can break it up over 2 years. And we've had special assessments that are $10,000 that we have 1 month notice on. So this is where you need to be really careful. And if you are buying a condo, look at the finances, look at the numbers, see what they have in reserves, and check the entire property, walk the property. Because if you're seeing foundation issues, roof issues around, those are going to come from those common funds. And if there's not enough to replace roofs or to do foundation repair, so if it looks like the community is not kept up and there's not a lot of money in there, that's a big red flag. Even if your unit was renovated and adorable, be very, very careful about that. You have to look at the whole thing because you're an investor in that entire community now.
Absolutely. And, just so like if you are going to be buying that, it's easy to get those documents because the lender requires them. So on my end, we've got to get all the HOA documents. And there have been times where if the HOA, is underwater, it may not be something we could finance.
Yeah.
If they're in bad financial shape.
Yes. Are there restrictions? I think I remember something for like FHA and VA where there's certain requirements for the reserves.
Absolutely. So there are different requirements. So when you're looking at like a condo specifically, like we have to go for FHA, for example, we have to go and look at FHA's website to see if the condo is approved for FHA financing. And it's the same for conventional. So that'd be Fannie or Freddie.
Okay.
They also have. So basically, if you ever hear the term like non-warrantable condo, that basically means they don't meet the guidelines for Fannie, Freddie, VA, FHA. They don't meet the specific guidelines.
Yeah.
And so the financing is going to be quite different, for a non-warrantable condo. That is not a normal type of product. It's something that, I have done them. It's basically.
But that's a red flag.
It is because there are reasons why. But okay, yes, you say that. But let me mention this. In a brand new condo project, they just may not meet the requirements. They could be totally fine. So I don't want to say it's totally a red flag. Yes, it is something that you want to check into the reasons why. But a lot of the times it's because they don't meet like owner occupancy ratio percentages.
Gotcha.
Because they're brand new. And they have a certain number that say they're building and they only have maybe 3 that are occupied. So they can't meet the requirements yet.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, that brings me to what I was going to talk about next was the fees and buying and selling. So that's another surprise people have. I sit down all the time with homeowners who are getting ready to sell their house and we're going over the expenses that they might, have to pay to sell. And then they see that line item where I put like $1,000 or $2,000 for HOA. They're like, no, my dues are already paid.
Ooh,
I'm like, well,
stop the dues.
That's called doc prep, resale certificate. What else do they have? We see the resale certificate, transfer fee, sometimes charitable contribution.
Oh, yeah. Now, isn't this something that you will draw up in the contract as far as like, I know you're talking about the listing side, but on the buying side, so when we get a contract for somebody who's purchasing a condo, isn't there a section where you put in like the, max out of pocket for the buyer is $250 towards those type of fees?
Yeah. So the way now, of course, state specific and you want to look at all the details. The way it's written, the fees will fall under the seller, but the buyer can contribute towards that. So that's what you're talking about. Okay. So you as a buyer can come in and say, hey, I'll throw $100 towards this, but then the rest would be the seller's responsibility, whatever's remaining. So sellers, be aware of what your fees are. And like I said, I throw in $1,000 or $2,000 depending on the neighborhood, but I don't have them all memorized. But there are some that I mentioned charitable contribution. There's only a couple in our area that I know of that do that, but Lantana and Harvest both do that. So there is a percentage of the sales price that gets sent to a charity. This is part of their HOA. So I had a seller a couple years ago. She was surprised she didn't know that. And it was over $2,000 as the charitable contribution fee.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
For her house. So yeah, being aware of that portion of it. And it can, like I said, it can vary. I usually put in $1,000 or $2,000, but it can be significantly more than that depending on what your neighborhood fees are. There also, I have seen some that the HOA does this is getting a little technical, so talk to your agent about it, but there's some neighborhoods like Robeson or where else was I? Heritage in Fort Worth. So these communities, they have they call it a buyer, initiation fee. So it's your enrollment into the HOA. So it's called a buyer fee, but it does have to be put into the contract for the buyer to pay for it. Otherwise it will default to the seller. So being aware of what those fees are and how it needs to be put in the contract so that it gets charged to the right person, because our contracts, even though your HOA calls it a buyer fee, the way the contracts are written, it's not going to default to the buyer. So know those up front. Talk to your HOA if you want to know before you get on the market. And then for buyers, reading those documents when you get them. So it's required as part of the contract to get those HOA docs.
Yes.
So review them. Make sure.
If you are going to be looking at a townhome or a condo, let your lender know, because the pre-qualification they might be doing just for a single family residence, right? So I do want to know, I do like to ask that question, because we don't want any surprises if they're already, say, at their max sales price that they're qualified for. Then all of a sudden they're like, well, I want this condo and it's an additional $400 a month. That might kick them out of qualifying.
Yep.
So just make sure you got to tell your lender everything.
Yes. And if there are things that you want to make sure that you look out for, it, like I said, if you have a work truck and you want to make sure you can park that in your driveway, look for that in the documents. If you want to be able to paint the house a certain color, do certain things with it, read those documents. It can be a lot of pages, especially if it's a townhome or a condo, but read through it. You can do keyword searches, pull up the PDF and search for keywords to help you look for the things that are most important.
You're so smart. Not everybody will do that, Jessica.
Well, then don't come yell at us afterwards for finding out that you can't have chickens because your HOA doesn't allow them.
Oh my gosh. That's a good one. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Be sure to check out our socials. It's Nestology Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
Well, thank you for joining us, where we help you to make the best of your nest.
Bye.
Bye.